War is war. I do not know about the issue with Ben Roberts-Smith, but my understanding is that things have happened in all wars. The Americans and the Russians are renowned for, sorry about that, indiscriminate shootings. I feel this is a witch hunt, and we do not know the real reason why this witch hunt has started. He could not be the only one who may have skated on the edge. No.
There is a different test at the criminal level. I want to bring you in, Keith. You served in Afghanistan 3 times, including as a commander. You also worked as a barrister representing and defending 2 soldiers facing charges stemming from the Brereton inquiry. Now, I'm not going to ask you to compromise privilege, but obviously you've seen this firsthand. Talk to me about that line and defining that line, because yes, war is horrific, but clearly we do have international obligations in terms of the way we operate.
We do, and thank you for your question, Raymond. A lot of people say something similar to me, and they mean well when they say it. But it's not true. We have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. On Anzac Day and in Remembrance Day, we say, lest we forget. And for that to mean something, we must preference truth-telling over myth-making, because myth-making doesn't help anyone. I think when I think of all of the Australians who've served, and 3,000 served in special operations like I did, when you look at the Brereton report, you cannot ignore it. Yes, it's not at the criminal standard, and that defamation trial was not at the criminal standard, but you cannot ignore the findings of Justice Brereton and Justice Bosanko. It matters. And so when I saw Nick McKenzie and Chris Masters at the steps of the court, I was struck by their eagerness to single out the SAS witnesses who gave evidence. That showed moral courage. I was struck by their keenness to show that there was a humanity to the people who lost their lives in Afghanistan, like Ali Jan. And in my second tour, I was a platoon commander, and we did a lot of our operations by day, which was a change from the first tour. And when you see people during the day, you see our common humanity. And so I don't think we can turn the other cheek to this. And we can revere our heroes, we can acknowledge that they're human, but we can hold ourselves to account, because we are a democracy and that's what we do. We can be proud of that, and we can say that that's something worth fighting for.
There is a well-known maxim that justice delayed is justice denied. Given that Ben Roberts-Smith is Australia's most decorated war hero, does the panel believe that he should be stripped of his titles now in light of the judgment handed down by Justice Bosanko, or do you believe that in order to uphold the rule of law, such a decision should be made if there is a criminal finding?
If I could talk of another award, which is the Leadership Awards that are being debated in the Senate and in the press, I think Defence has an obligation from the Brereton report to address culture and leadership. And it doesn't have to be at the criminal standard. The whole Defence Force discipline system is not at the criminal standard. Those awards were given not at the criminal standard. And when you read the Brereton report, clearly alcohol was a massive factor that contributed to behaviour. So when particular officers might have been given awards showing distinguished command and leadership, I think the Defence Force is entitled to say, well, maybe that wasn't distinguished command and leadership. And that doesn't have to wait for a criminal trial to occur, because it's not about...
So do you think that should happen straight away?
Well, I think there should be due process. So the administrative law standard should apply. People should be given procedural fairness and a right to reply.
But you do see that there's a sense of urgency around that for defence and leadership to send a message?
So the Brereton report came out in November 2020. It's 2.5 years ago. We have Special Forces soldiers on 2 hours' notice to move right now. You know, those people are ready to go and put their lives on the line for all of us, and most of them never went to Afghanistan. So I think the sooner we deal with the leadership and cultural issues, the quicker the better.
Michael? The other element, of course, is the War Memorial and the way that Ben Roberts-Smith is commemorated at the War Memorial. There's been a big discussion around that. The War Memorial is looking at how to do that. What are your thoughts on whether it should be removed or altered?
It shouldn't be removed. It's a part of our history. But I think it should acknowledge, A, the Brereton report and perhaps this defamation trial, perhaps.
Why do you say perhaps? Why isn't it a given?
Because Ben Roberts-Smith still has a right to appeal. And there's a question about whether there's a criminal charge or not. That's for the Office of Special Investigator. And one thing we've learned from the last few weeks is that politicians like me should stay out of criminal proceedings. It just doesn't do the system any good. He's entitled to the presumption of innocence and due process. But I think the Brereton report belongs in the War Memorial.